Governor Scott Walker, a man who was gone through recall based on his standing on his principles, and he won, of course, by a bigger margin in the recall election after the controversy with the unions than he did when he won the original election. Now he's running for re-election, talk of a presidential candidacy, which he won't necessarily talk about. We address all of this, but the name of his book, folks, is Unintimidated, A Governor's Story and a Nation's Challenge. And I said to him, I couldn't think of a more appropriate title for your book than Unintimidated.
It fits with what we did in Wisconsin. I mean, this book is not a biography. You're not going to find out about me being a kid and an Eagle Scout or all those things. Those are all true. This is really a book about the reforms we did in Wisconsin. A lot of people know about the protests, they know about the recalls, but they don't know how we did it or why we did it. And that's really what we talk about in this book.
And I want to get to all of that. We will get to all of that. We have plenty of time. But I do want to ask you about what you were saying on Sunday about that you believe the president, the vice president for the Republican nomination in 2016 should come from a couple of governors. Why? I mean, you described briefly there, but
yeah.
Why? I mean, I know traditionally governors do win the presidency, and it's rare for a senator. I think Kennedy and Obama, and there was a space in between. But why so?
Yeah. As I was asking an interview on Sunday, so what's your ideal candidate? I say it would be either current or former governor, and not just because that's tradition. Because between 1960 and 2008, the only people elected were governors, presidents, or vice presidents. And I think there's a reason, because Americans want people who have proven that they've been a chief executive, done it successfully. What I talk about in the book, and where it ties in with that, is there's reason as conservatives, as Republicans, to be optimistic in America, because there's now 30 Republican governors, and governors all across the states are doing big, bold, reform-minded things in education and tax reform and collective bargaining reform, in many other areas that we just don't see in Washington. And as Republicans, we should be optimistic about that, but we need to share that message with Washington.
Yet you do allow and make allowances for a Rubio, for a good friend of yours, Congressman Paul Ryan, and others.
Yeah, I said those are all good guys, and I appreciate the good work that they're doing, and obviously I know Paul particularly very well, Paul Ryan, that is. But I said, I think in the future, people are going to want someone from outside. They want people to shake things up, and they want people who are proven reformers. In the book, we talk about our reforms, but we also talk about other states where state after state, governor after governor, state legislature after state legislature flipped in 2010. And because of that, you see across America, out of the 30 states that have Republican governors, I think something like 23 of the top 25 states in terms of best and worst states to do business in are led by Republican governors. 19 of the top 20, 10 of the top 10. There's a pretty compelling message that if you want a stronger economy, if you want limited but effective government, the people to turn to are Republican governors. And that's part of what I talk about.
Now, I'm going to ask the question that most people would ask at the end. I'll ask it at the beginning here. You happen to be a sitting Republican governor who has overcome great, I won't say adversity, personal adversity,
sure,
for threats to your family, to yourself, but also when it comes to governing. The recall based on the actions you took, and the media, the wrath of the media against you, and here you are, still standing, surviving, thriving, wonderful things done in your state. So, is it going to be a presidential candidacy for you in 2016? Are you going to run? And if not ready to say it now, when will you make up your mind?
Well, in my case, I've had to run for governor twice now in the last 3 years. In fact, next year will be the third time in 4 years. And so I had to spend a lot of time, a lot of people, a lot of grassroots supporters helped me in my state and across the country do that. So I'm really very committed to being governor in the state of Wisconsin. I think I can do a lot there, and I can have an impact not only on my state, but on reforms across the country. Without a doubt, in the future, I'm going to focus on helping move our country forward. But I think time and time again, for us to think beyond the 2014 elections, not just because I'm up, but because for us, what we showed in Wisconsin and other states like Ohio and Michigan and others I mentioned in the book, showed, particularly in the Midwest, was that if you elect a chief executive and a legislative majority that's Republican, we can get really big, bold reforms done. We need to focus on 2014, holding the House. I think we got to, particularly with Obamacare's failures, we got an excellent opportunity to offer a better alternative and win the United States Senate back. And then, after that, then people can talk about what happens 2 years from now.
Okay, but so you're obviously running for re-election, but you're not ruling out
parlaying that into a run in 2016. You're not saying no, that you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I've never ruled anything out. In my case, though, I'm focused on being governor. My state went through a lot. I mean, you talked about not just for me personally, but the protests, the recalls, the next wave of recalls. I think for a lot of people in my state, they just like to have some calm over the next few years and a governor that's focused solely on being the governor and continuing our positive reforms.
And then I'm watching the Giants game on Sunday, the Giants and the Green Bay Packers, and there you are with Governor Chris Christie, because the game was at the Giants Stadium in the Meadowlands in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You and your sons were all together watching the game, rooting for different teams, although I have a feeling Christie was rooting against the Giants because he's a Cowboy fan.
He is a Cowboys fan.
But
he's a Jets fan, but not a Giants fan.
Yeah, no, I know, it's crazy. So did the topic of politics come up? Did the topics of presidential politics come up between the two of you?
Not 2016, but politics for sure. I mean, Chris and I are talking a lot. We've both been involved in the Republican Governors Association. We want to make sure
he's
that
a chair now, isn't he?
He will be the incoming chair after next week. Bobby Jindal just finished off his term. I'll be that in the future. And we really talked about key races across America. We want to make sure that people, I mean, you think about it, not just in my case, but you think of, for example, Rick Scott and Rick Schneider in Florida and Michigan, respectively. Those are states where they've had about a 5% reduction in their unemployment rate. That alone should be reason to see those guys elected again. Chris and I talked about those races, about Pennsylvania, about great governors like Susana Martinez and Brian Sandoval in New Mexico and Nevada, respectively. There's just a lot of great Republican governors across America. And that's why, again, in the beginning of this book in particular, for folks who are frustrated with Washington, for Republicans, for conservatives who are frustrated, one of the great optimisms I talk about in our book, Unintimidated, is that governors are the reason to be optimistic. President Reagan said something great in his, we said many great things, but one of them I particularly love is his first inaugural address. We should all remember that the federal government didn't create the states.
Yeah.
The states created the federal government.
Very true. We're talking to Governor Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin. Brand new book, Unintimidated, A Governor's Story and a Nation's Challenge, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. You get a run? And he never said to you, so you get a run? Never? Because you guys would be, if you both ran, you'd be running against each other, yet your politics are kind of similar. And you're...
Oh, I kid, you get a kick out of it. I tell Chris this, so I'm not speaking out of school.
Yeah.
Chris and I are very similar, speak our mind, speak it. I said the difference between him and I is I have a Midwestern filter. If I think somebody's asking me a crazy question, I just say that's ridiculous. He says, you're an idiot. But we're very similar in that regard.
But politically speaking, you're very similar and known for, I mean, you, to the extreme, and to your credit, are known for taking on the unions and
the big government special interest.
Right. Him to a certain extent, but to a lesser extent because it didn't result in a recall and all that. So, I mean, would you say that politically speaking, almost down the road, down the whole, you're very much on the same wavelength as Chris Christie?
Oh, I think if you look at the 30 of us who are governors across America, really a laser-like focus on the economy, on jobs, on getting our states back on the right track, and taking on big challenges. I mean, again, I know I keep pointing to the book.
No, we're going to talk about it.
But there's some great stuff in there about, you look across America, what Chris did, what Bobby Jindal did, what Bill Haslam did, what Butch Otter did, what Nikki Haley's doing. I mean, there's some great examples of what Republican governors are doing all across
So how do you
America.
guys, if you were to run against each other, not only you and Christie, but some of the other governors, how do you distinguish yourself?
Oh, we're unlike some others out there, we really get along very well. When you see Republican Governors Association meetings,
oh, no, I don't doubt it. So you're running and he's running. I mean...
well, the nice thing is he ran for governor this time. I'm not. I'm running for governor.
No. I'm making believe. If you decided to run and if he decided to run and if other like-minded, as you allude to, that there's similarities between all of you, would it be tough if there's more than one of you in there to distinguish yourself from the other? I mean, what would make the difference?
I think with all those different governors, there's going to be some, I mean, to me, I'd love to have a debate about the future when it comes to the economy and it comes to fiscal issues. A lot of things that I think right now are being overlooked in our nation's capital. I think governors are the ones to make that case.
All right, let's talk about Paul Ryan for a second. I just saw a story yesterday where Paul Ryan was stressing how important immigration reform is. John Boehner said we're not touching it this year. That we're not touching the bill in the Senate at all. If we do it, we're going to do it in pieces, piecemeal. Do you feel that immigration reform is necessary for the Republican Party? And I'll just throw my 2 cents in here. To me, it's a lose-lose issue, especially the comprehensive bill, because the core, the base, is not going to be happy. The people who you bring in and legalize or whatever are always going to vote, 95% of them are going to vote Democrat anyway. And there are no jobs here now for people. And the argument is, well, we need high-skilled immigrants, we need low-skilled immigrants. You know, we have in minority communities, the unemployment rate is 30% for youngsters. So I just don't see, and Republicans will never be able to go far enough to satisfy the media or the Democrats. They'll work with you, you'll pass something, and then they'll say, well, the reason you couldn't get your gay partner in here is because the evil Republican we wanted, but they didn't. So you're right back as the evildoer again, even if you give. So I don't see how it's a positive for Republicans to pass immigration reform.
Yeah, I think the debate about what's happening in Washington right now is indicative of why Washington's so screwed up. They're talking about a symptom, not the overall problem. The bigger problem with immigration is that we don't have a legal immigration system in this country that works. If you had a system where, I don't care if it's Mexico, Germany, Ireland, you name it, if people want to come to America, India, you go down the line of folks I've met over the years who've come from other countries to live the American dream, to come here and work hard and be dedicated and get a good education, lift their kids up. Those are the kind of people we should want in America no matter what the circumstances. We got a system that's so screwed up it doesn't work right now, and it's next to impossible to get in on any kind of a timely basis. That's what the federal government should be fixing, is a legal immigration system that works, that is timely, matched up with a system that protects us against people who want to come into this country to do us harm, not just to feed off of the welfare system, but to do us harm in terms of other ways. We don't have that in America, and yet it seems like hardly anybody talks about that in our nation's capital.
Okay.
All right, folks, there you go. Part one of my interview with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, and we'll have part two in just a couple of minutes. And in part two, we explore how could you do an interview with someone of his stature and possible national aspirations without, and as a governor, of course, without talking about the implications of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and he does weigh in on that. Very interesting when you hear him talk about, sitting at the football game with Chris Christie and talking about the differences between them. Mostly it's a difference of style. It's not necessarily a difference in political philosophy, although, if you take it down, I don't know what the governor's, Scott Walker's feeling is on in-state tuition discounts for the children of illegals, or how he felt about the possibility of a mosque being built at Ground Zero, or how he felt about I'm not sure if his state actually signed on to the Obamacare, the lawsuit against Obamacare. New Jersey did not. Governor Christie wanted no part of that. So, there could be several differences that would distinguish one from the other should they both decide to run. And it would make it tougher for either one of them if they both decided to run. Because as Rand Paul told us on this show, it's possible for a Christie, a moderate, or a liberal Republican, so to speak, to find a way in through the primary process if there are enough people on the right that split the vote. Well, if suddenly you have 2 or 3 liberal governors or those considered to the left of the party running at the same time, then their vote is split as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this progresses. And part 2 of the interview coming up when we return. Tom DeLay will join us in the next hour, and former Congressman Pete Hoekstra.